Mr. Speaker, again, when you look at the history and what really happened, if the Premier knew on Monday, he waited to Wednesday to call the Mayor of Sussex. That's a stark difference from what the words he just spoke here in the House. And Mr. Speaker, he only tweeted it on Friday, more or less as an afterthought maybe. And so, again, we had a real situation about leadership, and again, the Premier chose to stay away and not reach out. He had opportunity in the state of the province. He had opportunity when he learned on Monday. He had ample opportunity. And, Mr. Speaker, I don't know if he was trying to keep his trip to Switzerland secret. There was no media advisory before he left, no news release, no exclusive with one of the media outlets. The news broke when we learned about it in the Globe and Mail. So I wonder if it was only made public because of the closure of the Sussex mine, and maybe the Premier was trying to get to Davos and back. So again, can the Premier tell us, what was your first indication? When was the first indication there was trouble in Sussex?
The Honourable Premier.
Monsieur le Président, je ne suis pas certain exactement pourquoi que le préambule a été fait, puis là la question qui évidemment ça s'accorde pas, Monsieur le Président, mais je vais quand même faire des commentaires. I actually was with the media, Mr. Speaker, quite often while in Davos. Obviously, I wouldn't be doing that if I would be doing anything but trying to make sure that I'm as transparent as I possibly can be. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to point out that while in Davos, I traveled alone. I was by myself, Mr. Speaker. I had no staff, zero staff with me to ensure that we contain costs, Mr. Speaker. Maybe the member opposite would like to talk about his trip to Brazil when he was a minister. I'd like to hear how many staff members were with him, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to see the results. Actually, I already know what the results are when it comes to economic development. When he was the Minister of Economic Development, Mr. Speaker, they're the first government in 40 years to not have a net gain of jobs to the economy, Mr. Speaker. So maybe the member opposite would like to tell us who went with him to Brazil. Maybe he'd like to talk about Paul Robichaud's trips to Europe, Mr. Speaker. Maybe he'd like to talk about David Allward's trips to Boston. So I ask him to enlighten us today.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I'm more than happy to talk about the trip to Brazil. Do you know why? Because the Premier was supposed to go on that trip. The Premier was supposed to go on a trade mission that contained a number of other companies as well. But the Premier made a decision not to go because of the riots in Kent County. There was a situation here in the province that needed leadership. And he chose not to go. And I was the substitute. The Premier could have sent a substitute or come home early because of the needs here in the province. And there was tremendous results from that trip to Brazil. RT Tech, well known within the media, again expanded its customer base and also expanded its export. Caris here in Fredericton, again, made sales and expanded its customer base and its exports. So there were real results from a trip that was taken. Not solo, and yes, there were support staff there to help set up meetings and go forward. Mr. Speaker, again, when was the first indication that there was trouble at PCS in Sussex?
The Honourable Premier.
Monsieur le Président, je vais certainement parler des résultats qu'il y a eu le dernier gouvernement lorsque ça venu au développement de l'économie. Monsieur le Président, the growth rate in New Brunswick from 2006 to 2014 was 2%, compared to 4% in Atlantic Canada. We had, Mr. Speaker, from 2006 to 2014, the worst economic growth rate in the country. Now, Mr. Speaker, they'll probably try to pin it all from the time of 2006 to 2010, but the stats show, Mr. Speaker, that it was 0.4% growth during the 2010 to 2014 time, Mr. Speaker, the worst of those several years between 2006 and 2014. I, Mr. Speaker, cannot believe that we are standing up here today, that we are discussing and having the Leader of the Opposition not focus on a budget that is incredibly important. I can't believe I'm the Premier who just delivered a budget, and I'm surprised that we're not talking about it, Mr. Speaker. And I'm even more flabbergasted that they want to talk about their record on economic development compared to ours, Mr. Speaker.